You didn't come this far to play small. This is Winning Daily, the podcast that builds winners in life and in business. Welcome home.
All right, cool. Here we go. 3, 2.
John Turk, take one.
Let's go. We are back on the Winning Daily podcast, and today we have on a very special guest, Mr. John Turk, live here in San Diego. We are on the road. We are joined by Mr. Mark Henderson and my other partner, Adam Mai. And it is great to be with you all. It's great to be seen and see you guys. So, John, you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, sure. Good to be here. Good to see you guys. And I've had an interesting life. I, started out in sports when I was a kid. Just kind of evolved into the whole fitness industry through some life experiences, and then became a police officer. I got my degree in exercise physiology and nutrition. And as I got involved in martial arts, which morphed into my acting career as Sub-Zero in a lot of the Mortal Kombat games. And then I ended up getting into more roles in acting as well. And then I evolved into, once I left the police department, getting into the fitness industry and doing personal training and opening my own business and things like that. So.
Okay, cool, man. Yeah, that's a scratch on the surface.
Right. We should continue our conversation we had about 10 minutes ago, right? Yeah. That was a good conversation.
Let's get to the Sub-Zero part, okay? So where were you born and raised? Just so I have an idea, and we'll get to the cool part.
Yeah, I was born in the suburbs of Chicago, the west suburbs, and I grew up in a little town called Addison. And Addison was a great town because everybody was really into sports, especially like wrestling and football. So I think that's when I got my first taste of, competition and working hard and just trying to excel and being a good athlete. My whole neighborhood was really good athletes. So it was kind of like you had a really good homegrown base of guys you can compete with. So that's kind of how that started. And Addison was also, at one point, had the highest population of Italians in the country per capita. And so I never thought I was Italian when I was younger growing up, but I was always Turkish and Norwegian. That's when my father was Turkish, my mother was Norwegian, and never told me anything else. So when I had my DNA done, I found out I was Italian. I'm like, man, I wish I knew that when I was younger. So Addison was a great area to grow up in. And then, I stayed there pretty much my whole life until later on I ended up moving to L.A. I moved to Texas, had some adventures in both places, which we can get into. And that's pretty much it, as far as where I grew up at. Well, I ended up working in the Chicago, not the police department in Chicago, but I worked in what's called Chicago Metro, and it's the outskirts of the city. So you end up dealing with a lot of city types, so to speak. They're in certain neighborhoods you got to be really careful of, even if you know what I mean. Yeah, and certain police you got to be really careful of, if you know what I mean. So
a little corruption.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at all your shoulders still.
Right. Which I can tell you some of those stories as well. But I had a great childhood. I had a good mom and dad. I had a brother, a couple sisters, and I have no regrets for anything I've done. I lived a good life. I've had good friends. I'm a really good friend. If my friends are there, I'm always standing behind them. I believe in honor, respect. That's why I became a policeman, and I just love life. I have a good marriage, and everything's great. So,
how old are you today, man?
I'm 63 years old. God. So yeah,
this is what you call, if you're watching this, if you're listening, but if you guys don't know, you need to watch this. This is what you call perceived likelihood of achievement right here. It's right. This is the goal. This is the goal. Absolutely. So when you were living in Chicago, how old were you when you became a police officer? And then what was your fitness journey like? Because there's a lot of fitness people that are going to listen to this and watch this.
Yeah. I was probably like 26 years old when I became a cop. So that was an interesting story too, because I didn't want to be a cop per se. I was always about law and order. I mean, I would kind of touch the illegal side of things and back off a little bit because I had a really strict father when I was a kid. And so I didn't always think, I want to be a cop. But when I was in Texas, I graduated college, and my buddy was a policeman in an area where we grew up in. And I was talking to him about it because I moved down to Texas with him, and and when I was down there, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had graduated. My degree was in exercise science, so I said, "Oh man, what am I going to do?" My buddy Bob says, "Hey man, why don't you move down to Houston with me? It's really fun. I visit my buddy down there. I'm going to go move down there, and we can have a great time." And I said, "Okay." I had nothing else going on, and I just packed it up and moved to Houston. And at that point, I couldn't find a job. You know, they're still fighting the Civil War down there, which is kind of crazy because I got in a car accident. I got rear-ended, and I remember the police were coming. And as I sat there, you see my Illinois plates, I must have been called "Go Home Yankee" about 10 times. You're talking, this is in the late 80s, you know. So I was just sitting here going, wow, this is really true what they're saying about the Civil War here. But so I just was looking for a job. I couldn't find one that I really wanted. And my buddy says, "Hey man, you know, you can get a job at this club." And I'm like, "Well, what club is it?" He goes, "It's a male dancer club." I go, I don't know how to dance, you know. And he goes, "You don't have to, you know, you get a costume, you go out there." So next thing you know, I was dancing for a year in Houston as a, you know, male dancer at a place called La Bear. And so I did that for, you know, a year. And at one point I just, you know, everything that comes with, you know, basically a male dancer is very similar to a rock star, you know, as far as lifestyle. So you do a lot of crazy things and you have a lot of crazy parties you go to. And at some point I felt empty. And I just said, I have a college degree, you know, I'm sitting here just boozing it up, running around all over the place with different women. And I just felt like my life was empty. And I said, I just got to go. And when I make a decision, I do it real quick. My mind is made up. I know what I'm doing. So I went up to my buddy the next day and he said, "Hey man, I'm going to go back to Chicago and kind of sort things out." He goes, "Oh, when?" You know, we had like 6 months left on our lease. And I said, "Tomorrow." And he goes, "What?" And he was a good friend of mine, and his girlfriend became like my little sister. So, you know, we're all, you know, getting ready to, you know, pack up and leave. And I paid the rest of my rent for the time that, you know, I left him with. But I remember just sitting in the lot and we were just embracing, and next thing you know, she starts crying, I start crying, and, you know, we're all hugging. And I was getting ready to get in my car, and my buddy says to me, "John, you know what? You should be a cop. You'd be a really good cop." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he goes, "You should go apply at, you know, the department where I work. They like guys that are really fit and in shape." And I said, "All right, I'll think about it." So when I got home, I just kind of looked through the paper and I saw that department he was talking about was hiring. So I said, "I'll go in and, you know, apply for a job." So I went in there and they were handing out the applications and I filled it out. So when they had the orientation, I showed up and there was like 300 people applying for one job.
Yeah, but nobody could shake their ass in a car.
No,
I already got the costume.
yeah, you're right. I already got the costume. And where's the party at? So I walk in and right away I'm like taken back. I'm like, what am I doing here? You know, I'm seeing police from other areas there in uniform applying for the same job, and I go, this isn't gonna work. But I'll do it anyway. So I hand in my application, and the first part is a written exam, and I think at that point they were only taking like the top 20%. So right away, if I failed and I didn't, you know, make the top 20, it cuts the list down a lot, and I ended up making the top 20 on that one. So I said, okay, this is cool, you know. I'm still not thinking I'm going to be hired. And as the test is going on, you take a lot of different tests, psychological, physical, lie detector, and I just kept passing. And as we got to the end, there's a final phase called the Police and Fire Commission, and there were 10 guys left, and I was one of them. And the lady says, you know, you're going to do your interviews. And at the time, I had just left Texas, like I was saying, I had a mullet. You remember Billy Ray Cyrus? So I had a mullet like that, and I took it, and I had to wear a suit, so I tied the thing up and I stuffed it down the back of my suit, you know, thinking, oh, they might see it, they might not. Well, you could see it was easy, you know. So I walked in and I sat down, and there were 3 of them, and one of them had a really long ponytail. I go, okay, at least somebody might be on my side here. So we went through all the interviews, and you know, they asked me, said, we noticed you got really long hair. Would you cut it if you got the job? I said, oh yeah, absolutely. And the guy with the ponytail winked at me, you know, and they called me like 2 days later, and they said, well, we got good news and bad news. The good news is, or the bad news is, you know, you didn't make, you know, the top person. And I said, bummer. She said, but you made number 2. And I said, really? And she goes, yeah. I said, but I still don't get hired, on. She goes, no, we decided we're going to hire 2 people. You want the job. You can take a week to think about it. I don't need to think about it. I'll take it, you know? So that's how I became a cop. It was bizarre. So
Did you keep the ponytail?
yeah, yeah, you know, I could have sold that thing, man. I could have.
You had to cut it off though?
Yeah, I had to cut it off. Yeah. Did I keep it?
So, how long were you a cop for?
10 years, almost 10 years. Yeah. And I got hurt on the job wrestling with a guy. I had 4 surgeries on my knee from it, and it wasn't even on the street. It was in a training class.
Yeah.
And our department trained a lot. And so what had happened is I was wrestling with a guy, picked him up, and I went to toss him down, and my foot hit the papers that the instructor had on the mat, and he weighed about 250, landed on my leg and broke it in half. And it was literally bent on an angle. So I went to the hospital. They withdrew 60 cc's of blood. And I had already had an ACL repair. So I didn't want to borrow from Peter and give to Paul. And I'm not crippled or anything, but I can't run, jump, or wrestle and fight with people, you know, unless obviously my life depended on it. But as a policeman, you have to be ready to do that. So I ended up leaving. And and so, you know, I just ended up doing that job. I got promoted to detective, which was a really fun thing. You work with a great group of guys, you know, it's really a lot of camaraderie, and everyone just knows everything about the person you're working with, because, you know, you live and die with these guys, and it's fun. It's fun in a way because you get really close, and you have a lot of politics involved in the police, just like you would in military. So there's good things and bad things about it. And you know, I had people that I didn't get along that were in upper management, but it's not like, you know, you hated these people. You just had your differences, and you just got moved on from there.
Do you think that job sculpted who you are today in any form?
Yeah, you know what? What's funny is usually when you're a cop, if you've got 5 or more years in, there's certain habits that get ingrained in you. And for me, it was a lot of policemen are good at understanding who a scumbag is. And you don't even have to talk to them. I can look at people, and you have a sixth sense, because all day long you deal with scumbags. And when you get to know that aura, you can feel it. And so, like, my wife, even now, I'm like, don't hang around with her. You know why? Yeah, I just know. I go, no, don't. And then as time goes on, she finds out, and she's like, you're right. How did you know that? I said, I just don't know, you know. I can tell when someone's bad, but a lot of times it's hard to tell when someone's good, because people are good actors, right?
Right.
So that's one thing I think. And the other thing is I tend to be skeptical a lot, and I don't like that aspect of it. Is being a policeman, you become tainted, you become untrusting of a lot of people. And the other thing is a lot of people, when they find out you're a cop, they automatically put you in a category.
Yeah.
And it's hard to break out of that category when you're in it. So a lot of it is a stigma attached, and people don't like the police. No one calls the police when they're having a good day. It's always when they're having a bad day, right? So you get there and you're going to a domestic call, and you got family members fighting who look like they're going to kill each other, and then you go to break them up, and they both start attacking you. So it's weird. Your day is basically could go from 0, where you're sitting in the squad car and you just got your donuts and coffee and you're ready to go. It's midnight.
You meant chicken breast.
Yeah. Well, I'm playing into the stigma. Everybody always thinks. But, you know, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're in a life or death situation, and like, you don't know when that's going to be. And yeah, I mean, it's scary in one way, but it's very stimulating in another way. And you learn how to think under pressure. That's the other thing that's really good about being a cop. You really can think on your feet. Like, and the other thing that happens with me is every situation, you know, you get into, you try to assess it and find out, like, okay, what if something goes bad here? Where's the nearest exit? Is there another exit, you know? And so that's the thing I try to tell my wife, you know, whenever you're in a situation, always assess the safety aspect of it, or, you know, how you can get out the fastest, because people a lot of times have been stuck in buildings and didn't know there was another exit, and they ended up burning alive in it. It's like crazy when you think about it. So the aspect of liability is always with me too. So in other words, whenever I'm doing something, I always think, okay, how am I going to get sued? And that's always in the back of your mind, because as a policeman, everybody looks for a reason to sue you. Yeah. So
especially in this state, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's crazy.
So being a police officer, there's so many people are law enforcement guys, they're into their health and fitness. At that time, when you were living in Texas and Chicago, where did you work out?
When I was in Chicago, I worked out at a place called the Chicago Health Club. But there was a gym there called Tom's Gym when I first started to go to a real gym, and it was all just bodybuilders. And it was a great time because everybody at night, that was the gym to be at. And you would have Mr. America would be training in there, Mr. Illinois would be in there. So it was just a really like inspiring climate to be in. And everybody back then, you know, as they say, every bodybuilder wants to be a powerlifter and every powerlifter wants to be a bodybuilder. And so you go in there and you see these guys throwing this weight around and, you know, it was just fun. And so those are the main ones. It was called Tom's Gym and then Chicago Health Club. And then Powerhouse started to get popular. And so that's kind of where I went at one point. And then, you know, right now my gym's in my house. I got a decent little gym in my house. COVID.
Same.
Kind of did the same thing. Yeah, you too? Yeah.
I've been working out at home for a year now.
Yeah. It's been since, so luckily I had minimal equipment in my house at the time. And that after everything opened up, I went and bought a free motion machine. I got all this treadmill, elliptical, you know, dumbbells, barbells. I bought the whole thing. And so I don't have to worry about that happening again.
Your approach to fitness from then to now, then you were maybe say, give or take a couple years. How old were you at that point?
So I was in fitness. I wouldn't say I was in fitness. I started lifting weights to become a better wrestler. I lost to a guy who was way stronger than me. That's when I started thinking, I got to start working out. So that's how that happened. But when I was 12 years old, I had a friend, and a good friend of mine. He was in my Cub Scouts. His mother was my den mother, and he got shot in a freak accident. He was cleaning his grill in his backyard, and the neighbor accidentally shot him cleaning his rifle. And so the bullet went through the window, hit him right in the throat, and he ended up dying. So a bunch of us kids loaded into a car and we went to the wake. And so when I saw him, you know, at that young age, who I was just with 2 days earlier, you know, laughing and having a great time, and I'm looking down in the casket and here's my friend, and it really hit me hard. And at that point I became so afraid of dying because I didn't know what I believed. My father was a Muslim, my mother was a Christian, and my dad was an engineer, so he's all science-based, and, you know, he's smart. My mom was, you know, in the banking system, and I thought, she's smart. Well, you know, if they don't agree, what is there out there, you know? And so I didn't really believe in anything, you know? And so I just kind of did my own thing. So being a young kid, not really believing in God, I was like really scared of, I got to live as long as I can. So I just really took it upon me to really get into health and fitness. And, you know, my siblings have all had some major issues with their health. So, you know, I'm just blessed that I started at a young age and, you know, just basically carry through till now. And it's, what's really strange is you go through a metamorphosis, you know, where you, like right now, you know, like you guys are, you know, all jacked up and looking good. And that's the way I was when I was younger. But as I've gotten older, I've just noticed that you have to adapt to what your body's changes are. And you can't keep slamming the heavy weights. There's certain movements I still lift heavy on, but it's a metamorphosis, a progression of going along with yourself and finding out what works best for you. And everybody's different. And so for me, my fitness journey was more with the aspect of not really necessarily endurance, is building as much muscle as I could. And I think when you look at the fitness industry as a whole, it's definitely changed over the years, but I think the most important thing people need to realize is muscle. It's the number one thing to keep you young. And if you don't have it, you know, that old adage, if you don't use it, you lose it. It happens. And I could see my friends that used to lift all the time when they were younger, and now they don't. And I could just see the difference in how I've aged and how they've aged. And I know that if they kept up lifting, they would still look young and be young. But so many of them, life takes over. You got a wife, family, kids, a job, and it's just really hard to work out. But
that's one of the things I want to ask you too, because obviously being a police officer is a very stressful job, and then being a stripper is a very stressful job. And those two, man, I don't know how you're still here, Julia, but in all seriousness, because I want to get to the part where your acting career started, and then, you know, obviously now you're a successful trainer, and but the fitness professional kicked in. I think it was almost like common sense from what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't ask somebody to do something you haven't done, type of thing. But for the age that you're at now and being smart in your training and training for longevity, what do you say to the people out there that are maybe watching this from a younger generation and they haven't really been there, done that in their fitness journey, and they don't know how to manage stress? Because as you get older, stress compounds and compounds and compounds. Like, I read something funny last night. It was like, I wish somebody would have told me how fast it is to be from 18 to 35. I'm 35 right now. I was like, well, that's relatable.
Yeah.
But I'm already thinking ahead to when I'm from your age, because you are the goal. Like, to me, that is the goal. I want to look as good as I can, as long as I can. Like, same thing. So how do you manage stress? Because that will take a toll on you.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's interesting as, like, some of the clients I train, like, they have siblings. And so, for example, one guy, owns a major company in California. I don't want to say who it is, but and he's got constant problems, and he's not real heavy or anything. And one day his brother shows up, and he's just giant. He's real heavy. He's a big drinker. And I'm like, hey, man, I go, what's your brother's health like? You know, he goes, John, you wouldn't believe it. He goes, the guy, there's nothing wrong with him. And, you know, he's a year younger than me. He eats like crap. He drinks. He does all these things. He goes, but I don't understand why there's nothing wrong with him. I said, is your brother high strung? And he goes, no. There could be an earthquake going off, and my brother would go, give me a beer, I want to watch it. You know, he's just a really laid back dude. And I said, you know, I think the main thing that ages people, number one, is stress, and you have to learn how to deal with it. And the problem is a lot of people in the world, they create stress that hasn't even occurred. So in other words, we worry about things that didn't even happen yet. So all that worrying is just deteriorating your body and wearing at your health. It's wearing at your longevity. It's wearing at your joints. It's causing all these problems inside that manifest outwardly years down the road. So for me, what I've always done, if something in my life is stressful, I get rid of it, including like relationships with family members. You know, I have family members I don't talk to. We don't get along. I still love them, but we don't get along. And it's not their fault. It's not my fault. It's just we're different people. So we limit the amount of contact we have with each other because we end up arguing. And so I think in life, that's what you need to do. If something is not, if the risk outweighs the reward or the decline outweighs the benefit, get rid of it. And sometimes it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, if it's your kid, yeah, you're going to have to deal with that. But what's the best way to minimize how it's going to affect you? And for me, I found number one is relaxation and looking at the situation and literally writing down on a piece of paper how I can handle it best. And then I file it and keep it in my head. And if things come up along the way, I deal with it. But once I've created my game plan to deal with it, I don't worry about it anymore. And that's the problem a lot of people have. They sit and they think about it and they think about it and they can't sleep.
I think everybody's guilty of that. Right?
I'm guilty of it too.
So guilty.
Yeah, and I work at it really hard not to. But I think for me, you know, and the other thing, I'm going to be straight up honest with you, is I never was really a sun worshiper. I always, even when I played sports, like in the breaks, I would go stand under the tree. For some reason, I just never liked it. My friends were always like sticking mirrors in their face and, you know, doing all this crazy stuff. And even now, I have 100 block on my face when I came in, you know. I wear long sleeves and, you know, and everybody's like, man, dude, it's long sleeves and it's like 90 out of it. But I'm not sweating. I just stay out of the sun. And, you know, my wife was an esthetician and she did a research paper on the sun damage. And turned out to be a bigger freak than anything. And so I would be walking down the streets and I would feel, and she's squirting me with sunblock as I'm walking. So that's another thing I do. And it's never too late to use it, because once your skin starts getting damaged, you have different layers of skin. You could have only damaged the top layer, it didn't go down to the second layer, right? So everybody thinks, oh, it's too late for me. It's never too late. So sunblock is huge.
I started to sweat right now when you were saying that. I was like, dude, I love the sun. Like everything you're saying right now, you're like, you're never too late. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Start just doing it now. I mean, usually I'll wear a hoodie if I can, you know, and it looks stupid. Like I have these glasses, you know, and I put these things out. I got my hoodie and one guy walks up, he goes, hey man, you look like the Unabomber. I go, maybe I am.
I want to go back to what you just said about de-stressing.
Yeah.
Like compartmentalizing. Do you do that too? You compartmentalize?
Yeah, I do. I
set them aside, throw them away.
Yeah. Yep.
When you're done with them?
Yeah, you have to, because we compartmentalize everything in our lives, including our friends. You have friends that are, this group of friends, and you have this group of friends. And then as far as even clients, like I've had clients that completely stress me out 4 or 5 days a week. They're good clients, but my job ends up becoming less about, number one, enjoying what I do, and number two, about help, and it becomes more of you're a counselor. And I understand I'm in what's called a business of personal training, but there comes a point where you have to separate personal issues from your business. And I've had to release certain clients because of that, because it was stressing me out. The negativity I was taking on when I was working with this person just wasn't worth it to me.
Oh yeah, it's got to bring it down.
Yeah,
ruins your day.
Yeah, and at times I find myself doing that. It's like when there's bad news, I'm like, gosh, I got to tell this person about it. And now I feel like the bearer of bad news, and I don't want to be that. Like there's some people that enjoy calling you up. Hey man, guess what happened? And you're like, oh dude, and it's like every time that phone rings now, I don't want my number to show up and be the guy that everyone goes, oh no, what's he gonna say? So I mean, that's just it. You got to always think of the positive side of things, because there is one.
What age did you internalize it? Yeah, you realize.
I realized it probably in college, because I had a panic attack in college.
I see.
And it was I was finals. I was really worried, stressing. My dad was a big stressor. So in college one time I was studying. I had to pass these 2 exams. I wasn't sleeping. I was worried about it. And all of a sudden one night I was out with all my friends, and I just noticed I started getting this chest pain, and I didn't know what an anxiety attack was. And then before you know it, I'm going, I can't breathe. And next thing you know, I'm like, and I said to my buddy, I go, man, dude, something's wrong. I think I'm having a heart attack. And so all of a sudden I just stopped. I went on the ground and my chest started hurting. I'm thinking, I'm 23 years old. What is going on, And so then my buddy drove me to the emergency room. They took me in there, and I go, I can't breathe. And, they right away, all these doctors came rushing in, and they're like, you know what? You're not having a heart attack. You're having a panic attack. And I go, panic attack? I go, what's that? And he goes, well, basically what happens is your diaphragm's not relaxing, and it's compressing up against your heart, and it's not relaxing, so you can't get any breath in, and then your heart's feeling all this pressure, and it's a panic attack. So they gave me, I think it was at that time Xanax, and they gave me a bunch of these pills to take for, like a week or two, and I've never had one after that, because the doctor sat down with me, and I've always been one, I always looked up to the medical community, because after my friend died, I ran to the doctor for everything. I became a hypochondriac. I wanted to know why this happened in my body. Why did this happen? So I studied everything. That's when I really got into it. That's why I went to school and did what I did, because I was so worried and wanted to learn everything I could to be healthy and live long. So when I went there, I'm like, so what happened? So he starts explaining the physiology to me, and then he's like, a lot of it's happening in your head. You have to get your head straight, And so I went back, and at the time, obviously we didn't have the internet, so I went to the library and I just started researching, relaxation techniques, and I came across this breathing method that I would do. So at one time I felt like it was coming on, and I just did this deep breathing exercise, and the power of exhaling really slow is just tremendous. So even now, if you go on a film sets are very stressful. That's the other thing where I worry sometimes that, you're on a set and you got all these people that are depending on you. So you have to be, number one, really responsible. There's a lot of people in the industry that get into drugs and alcohol because it's stressful.
Yeah.
And so what happens is you get on a set and you got all this pressure on you. And now you have to act, you have to memorize all your lines. It has to be believable, and you have to do it when he says action. So there's a lot on you. So I had to realize, okay, what can I do to minimize this? And that I could feel like the stress coming on, and I just do my deep breathing stuff. And I just tell myself, listen, you're prepared. If you're prepared, you shouldn't stress out, because once the people that stress more are the people that aren't prepared, the people that cram for tasks. So preparation is everything, just like consistency with, obviously Gabe, Adam, you guys work out, we all really take care of ourselves and go at it. So you have to be prepared, you have to be consistent, and you have to think of the things in the way, the things that are going to get in the way of you achieving your goals, like
setting those healthy boundaries.
Yeah, setting the healthy boundaries is a really good example with people. You're going to have to set those boundaries with people that are in your life that are basically contributing nothing to anything he's doing.
A lot of the things that, I was just listening to you tell your story. You are very precise and very quick on some of the decision making that you make throughout the time. And as I'm listening, I'm like, okay, how is he making such great and intellectual decisions to go throughout his life? And it's the healthy boundaries.
Yes.
Because you're like, well, if someone doesn't, it's going to stress me out, I'm going to cut them out.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of individuals, especially like young entrepreneurs, even people that's like in the fitness space, because of social media, they're hearing just everybody talk from every single direction.
Right.
So the problem that comes in is there's so much information out there. They're taking advice from everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know what's interesting? You say that because a lot of times what happens is they play Mr. Potato Head with that advice. They take a little bit from here, a little bit from here, and they only take what fits what their narrative is.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's almost like confirmation bias on what, Gabe might say or Mark might say, and then they morph it all into one. And they go, well, so-and-so said this, like I'll have a client and I'll tell him, hey, he'll ask me, how do I lose weight? And he's like, tells me what his goals are. And then I tell him. And then all of a sudden he's got another issue comes up and he has another diet in mind. He's like, but you told me to do this. I'm like, that was for weight loss. It's another thing. And it's almost like they pick and choose people, what they like and what they don't like.
One of my greatest mentors and brother told me once, and we always say this too, is like, if your mentor is telling you something and you pick and choose what advice you listen from that person, then who really is your mentor?
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. Just because you're going to hear all this stuff, he's going to give you advice, but you're like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I kind of like that one.
Yeah,
okay, let's do this.
No, you're right. And people do that with, like I mentioned earlier, I'm into God and stuff like that. And people cherry pick the Bible.
Yeah.
And they pull that thing apart and they say, well, it says this here, but they leave out the other part over here. And it's just one of those things that we as
in nature. Yeah, it's a convenience. Exactly. You believe what you want to believe, and you want to believe it when it's convenient.
Yeah. Well, right, exactly.
I think it's a survival thing too, right?
Mm-hmm.
An organic survival.
Well, the biggest thing for every single human is their ego, right?
Yeah.
And so every way you know how, you're going to make a story that comes up to serve whatever you believe or your ego believes.
Yeah, the outside facing face. I heard something speaking of that.
Yeah.
I heard a pastor who was saying ego is the equivalent of edging God out. I was like, that's good. Yeah, really all like, okay, say less. Yeah.
Right.
Well, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the ego says it could do it itself and all this other stuff. And so you're always going to, you're right, you're going to always edge God out, right? So you're not going to be open to listening to others. You're not going to be open to opening up to others.
Yeah.
So
you did say faith early before we started this, that faith is part of your life. When did that come later in life, or has it always been?
No, it came later. So I pretty much, I wouldn't say I was an atheist, because an atheist doesn't believe in anything. Yeah. I thought, man, there's got to be a higher power. I don't believe in this Jesus. I don't believe in, Muhammad or any of this stuff. I just, because I never really looked into it. I went to church when I was a kid, was an altar boy a couple times, and I was more interested in sports and girls at the time. I didn't listen to any of it. So the minute I was out, I was gone. It was done, And I think for me, it was 2009, and I remember it because I had a friend that passed away, and he was a football player for Michigan State. He was a in-shape dude. He was 43 years old, just had 2 brand new twin babies. And we were sitting there one day, and this was at a facility in Chicago I used to work at. And he worked there too as an independent contractor. And one day he came in and he sat down, and I just looked at him, and it was like over a matter of 2 weeks, he just changed. His just face looked different. He looked kind of ashy, and his eyes had dark circles. I'm like, hey, Craig, I said, are you all right? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm just, new babies. I'm really tired. I don't know. One of the other guys thinks, it's just exhaustion maybe. And I said, well, do you have anything else going on? He goes, yeah, I'm getting little heart pains here and there. He goes, but I just think it's stress. I go, I'd go to the doctor if I were you. I don't know if I'd put that off. He goes, nah, I'll be all right. I'll just wait. Besides, I don't have insurance right now. I said, oh man, I said, just go to a doctor and see if they can listen to your heart, do something. He's like, yeah, I'll get to it. A week later, he ends up dying. He has a massive heart attack. He falls over and dies. And it really hit home for me because Craig was one of my friends at the gym, and we used to go out with him and his wife. And at the time I was in LA because I got a stunt award for doing The Dark Knight. And so one of my friends had called me and said, and everybody knew I was going to LA for the week and I'd be gone. And so one of my buddies from the gym, another guy by the name of Dwayne, I noticed when I got there, he was calling me. I'm thinking, and Dwayne is the kind of guy to just call you BS, right? He's a pretty straight-laced guy. He doesn't say much, but he's a real good guy, just a good heart, a good, responsible guy. So I'm like, what's Dwayne calling me for? You know, and I'm like, hey, Dwayne, what's going on? No, not much, man. I hope I didn't interrupt anything. Can you talk? And I said, yeah, sure. And he goes, hey, man. And he goes, I got some bad news. He said, Craig died. And I just, you know how when they say it's moments in time that are very traumatic, you remember exactly where you were, you remember exactly what was going on, and right now ingrained in my mind is where I was in the car. I was driving on the PCH in LA, going right past Santa Monica, and just I remember the weather, and I was just in shock. And I go, what do you mean Craig died? He goes, he had a heart attack this morning, just passed out and died. And so it really hit me hard. So I called my wife and I told her, and she got hit real hard by it. So at one point when I was, you know, I asked her, I said, hey, do you want me to come home? You know, and she says, no, stay out there. I'll be all right. So the next day I called her and she was just all messed up. And I said, are you all right? She goes, yeah, some really weird stuff's going on. I'm going to stay at my mom's house for the time until you come back. I go, what do you mean some weird stuff's going on? And she goes, I'll talk to you about it when you get home. Just don't worry about it. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? And I'll give you guys a short version of it. But so when I came home, I walked into my condo in the city and I had floor-to-ceiling windows all the way around. And there were 9-foot high, or 11-foot high ceiling windows, and my unit wrapped completely all the way around. So I was on a corner unit, and you could see everything in the city. So it wasn't like I'd already lived there 6 years. It wasn't new to me. It was late at night. It's not like I get creepy crawlies from people looking in my window because I've lived there so long. But the minute I walked in, I felt like this weird aura was in the room, and I go, wow, what is going on? I just feel creepy right now. And it wasn't anything she said. She didn't even tell me. She said, I'm just going to stay at my mom's, you know. So I looked, and it felt really cold in the room, and I go, what is going on? You know, was she tearing the heat up? I look, and the heat's on, but it's not clicking on. So first thing I do, I put my bags on. I'm messing with the heater. It finally clicks on. So I go over to the fridge, and I'm going to look for something to eat and drink, and I open the fridge, and right away when I open it, I got this feeling that there was something on the other side of the refrigerator door. And I open the door, and I'm looking at it, and I look at my arm, and it was like, and I'll tell you about a dream I had that was so bizarre. The same thing happened with my arm in this dream, but my hair stood up on my arm like my arm was seeing something that I didn't see, but nothing else on my body was. It was weird. And so I start to close the door, and there's this dark figure standing there, and you couldn't make out the face, but it was giant. It was like 6'7", way taller than me, giant shoulders, and it went down into a torso, and then it faded out at the legs. And I just looked at this thing, and it came and hit me, and it went into me and took my breath away. And then all of a sudden I couldn't move for like 3-4 seconds, and I'm looking at my arms like this, and I can't breathe. I'm going, and then the hair on my arms was standing up all over my body, and then it was out of me. And I'm like, okay, what did I just see? What was that, you know? And right away, my rationale took over, my cop mentality. You didn't see anything, you're tired. You just made that up in your mind. It was nothing, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, it was nothing, you know? And I got to go pick my wife up now, right? And so I jump in the car, and I got to drive 45 minutes to my wife's house because we lived in downtown Chicago. And when I got there, man, my wife was not my wife. It was the most creepy, scariest thing I've ever seen in my life. And knowing that here's a person that I was married to, had been with for 6 years, and she's just completely another person in a scary kind of way. So I had taken her home, and I can't even describe it because to put it in words won't justify when you feel. You can repeat something sometimes in words, and people, that wasn't really big, but it's the aura again you feel. It's what you see. And I took her home, and I remember sleeping that night and rolling over in the middle of the night and looking at her because I was just kind of weirded out, and she was just beamingly staring at me, and she just looked at me and said, I hate you. And right away I went, okay. And I got up and I walked out of the room, and then she just went completely crazy after that. And her mother, I said, what's wrong with her? And she says, I think she's being spiritually attacked, because her mother was really into Christianity. She goes, I know this. I'm very familiar with it. She's being spiritually attacked. and you need to deal with it. And I called the pastor. I go, wait a minute, what? I go, I don't believe in any of this stuff, you know? So I started telling her mom to beat it. This is crazy. You guys are nuts. And she started telling me it was all this demonic forces that were, you know, attacking my wife. And so I grabbed her, I took her home, and like I said, I was trying to get along, and after a while I was exhausted. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't do anything because I was scared. She was completely a different person and just changed overnight. And she told me that what had happened was she was in the room after I had told her our friend Craig passed away. And she had opened up the Bible because her mom always said, my wife was a dancer too. So she worked at a big strip club in Chicago. And so we weren't living a life for God. You know, she was a believer actually, but she obviously was a stripper and not living by what she said she was. But I wasn't. And so she said, hon, I came home, and this is all in hindsight, she told me all this stuff. And she says, I came home and I opened the Bible because I was so depressed. I went shopping and I tried to get my mind off of what had happened. And she said, God, you know, because she had a brand new Bible her mom gave her, and she said, hey, if you ever need help, look to the Bible. It'll speak to you. So she goes, okay, Bible, speak to me. And she said, she opened it up and she put her finger on a verse in the Bible, and it was from Matthew, and it says, if your eye causes you to sin, pluck it out. It's better to go to heaven with one eye than hell with two. And she goes, and that's basically meaning you're serving two masters. So she goes, God, are you really speaking to me? Because she was dancing and just wasn't living by a godly life.
Wasn't living in her.
Yeah, right. And so she said, speak to me again. And she opens the Bible in another place, just randomly open it and puts her finger down. And it says the same verse, and it's in like John, the same exact verse, but it's worded differently. She goes, oh my God, you're speaking to me, you know? And so all of a sudden she felt this rush of whatever force came into her body and just took over, she said. And she feels it was a spiritual attack because she was reaching out to the Bible and the devil didn't want her to do that. So she got taken over. And what we went through for 2 solid months was pure hell for me. And I had a lot of learning experience from it. But to make a long story short, she ended up getting healed. I had to commit her to a psychiatric ward, and the crazy thing is, you guys, obviously psychiatrists don't believe in the spiritual world. But when I confronted them at the end when she was healed, and you know the medicines supposedly were taking an effect or whatever, I went in and I met with the doctor. I said, what was wrong with my wife? And he says, well, we can't release her right away, but sometimes people lose track of reality. I go, so what does that mean? He goes, well, she had acute dissociative disorder. And I said, well, what does that mean? He was, like I said, she lost track of reality. I go, well, that doesn't tell me.
I was saying,
right? And so I said, what is it? What does this mean? She's talking about Leviathan and all these demon names. I go, what is that? And he goes, oh, I can't tell you anything about that. So I go on the internet because, you know, I'm looking all this stuff up, and I get into one thing leads to another. I end up at the Vatican, and they say that basically acute dissociative disorder is what they labeled the psychiatric community labels demonic possession because they don't believe it exists. So whenever someone shows any kind of demonic possession, they'll call it acute dissociative disorder. So that's why they were saying my wife had that. And I'm starting to go, holy crap, and I'm starting to look at all this stuff. When my wife she gets healed, she goes to all these pastors and gets healed and decides she wants to be a Christian. And so what I did is I said, listen, man, I go, we're back to normal. Let's just go on with our lives. I want nothing to do with this Christian stuff. I didn't like it. I didn't like what I saw in a lot of Christians, you know? And she says, well, hon, I'm going to be a Christian, and if you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. I said, well, I really don't want to be with you if you're going to be a Christian. I don't want my life like that. And she says, well, then we're going to have to separate, but you need to think about it and let me know what you want to do. And so being an ex-cop at the time, I walked away and I thought about it. I'm like, man, I love this woman. I can't just walk away. And so I went back in the room. I said, you know what? I said, I'm not going to walk away from you. It'd be bad for me to do that. I love you. I want to be with you. I said, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to prove your Jesus wrong. I said that. And I said, it's all a fallacy. It's all in your head and a fairy tale. And I'll show you it as I'll read your Bible. And so I attacked it and I read it. And when I got to the New Testament, I mean, the Old Testament was really hard to read. There's a lot of stuff in there. Some great stories, though, you know?
Yeah.
But when I got to the New Testament and I started reading everything and I started doing the geological stuff and looking into it, the archaeology and all the near-death experiences I watched on the internet of people and what they would see. And dude, nothing in the Bible contradicts itself. Everything is spot on. And all the things I learned that I wasn't taught in school, that I told was a lie, that everything was twisted, became a reality for me in a lie. So in other words, I started to see, I was red-pilled with God. And then because I looked into Islam, because my dad was Muslim. And then I looked into Buddhism, I looked into all these things. So that's kind of how my journey to faith came, is trying to prove my wife wrong and becoming a Christian. And now I'm a big believer in it, and it's changed my life. And how it's changed my life, I'll tell you this how it is. I no longer fear death. Everything I got involved in fitness with was because of death, seeing my friend dead. And then as I became a Christian, that fear of death left me. And now it sounds crazy, but I look forward to death. And I watch near-death experiences on the internet, and you see these people all say the same thing. And they say, I felt like I was home. This is where I belong. And it really resonates with you that you want to go home. This isn't our home here. Yeah. Our home is another world. Think about your kids. If any of you guys have kids, look at your kids' eyes. How does that happen from nothing? That's a little soul in there. It's got a personality. It's got everything. You're so attached to this kid. That's what we are to God. We're all his children. Everybody, including people that don't believe in him, But
I have something that we kind of brought, that I brought.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no,
that was awesome.
That was really, and I want to bring this full circle because I have something called the self-investment system, and it's your body, your mind, and your spirit. And a lot of people don't understand the difference between your spirit and your soul. Right. Because you have a soul, and that's what we feel in this room, your vibe, right?
Right.
And then obviously your body. It's like, how much do you bench, bro? Right? And then there's your mind. It's like, we're being replaced by AI right there.
Yeah.
So at this point, like, what differentiates you from the animals, right? It's like your spirit.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that can be a big missing component, because we look around social media and we look around what we allow in our minds, in our eyes, and in our ears, and what we're exposed to, what we allow ourselves to intake into our body. In that self-investment system, if one of those three things is out of alignment in any capacity, you're going to look up and you're going to be so far outside of your purpose, like you said with your wife. And I haven't met your wife, but she's got to be a badass if she's married to you. Yeah. and that's awesome.
All 4'11".
Like when you were telling the story, I was like, man, I hope they pull through. You know what I mean? And that's awesome. But it's without that is the most major component. I would argue that is the most major component, because you can look great, but how many people look great and they don't make it? And how many people are intelligent and they have all the money in the world and successful businesses, they have all these things, but they never find true peace and happiness.
Right.
And I used to be that same way, where I would fear death, overcome anxiety, depression, suicide, homicide, it's like all these things that you feel. But at the end of the day, that self-investment system has really helped me get through anything in life and become a successful husband, father, communicator, business owner.
Well, you have a good spirit. I can see it. All you guys do. I right away looked at you guys. I didn't get bad vibes if you were.
Yeah, but I remember dealing with a situation not long ago, and it was with my son, and it was a situation where somebody was like trying to cast doubt in this situation. I was like, hey, hold on, time out. Like, we don't live in fear. Like, I'm not really worried. They were like, well, what happens if this? And I'm like, what do you mean? What happens? Like, at the end of all this, like, we're good. Yeah. I've got peace. I've got joy. You can't take that away.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's a different level of life once you get there. So the self-investment system is, to me, those three things. Like I said, if one of them is out of alignment, and look, I'm going to tell the truth right now, just like I do everywhere, anytime. So I see pastors that they're invested spiritually and they're sharp mentally. And I'm like, what are you doing with your body? What are you doing with your body? You are you're a walking heart attack.
Body's a temple.
You're a walking heart attack. So it goes every which way. And it's like, we have to push yourself in every way, but you'll be very lost if you don't read, because it's like, what is the actual word say to you? But yeah, anyways, what do you got, Mark?
I was just going to say, man, you guys would get along and have some good conversations on your compartmentalizing and just staying away from the negative. We've had this conversation numerous times. I have a bad habit of trying to lean towards the negative. I don't know why, but I know if we have the negative conversation, this guy cuts me off Like, I don't want any part of it, man.
Yeah.
I don't want any part of that in my life at all whatsoever. And that's a genuine person that can be that, because I've only known Gabe for maybe 2 years, but I've learned a lot from him, and hopefully he's learned a lot from me. But bad habits. Some people will tell you have a bad habit, right? And some people won't. A real friend will tell you. So, with the direct approach or the indirect approach, you learn a lot from the good people around you. So I think you guys could have some really good conversations. You guys are two peas in a pod.
I mean, a lot of times it's the fight or flight mode, right? What got you here won't get you there type of thing. And so a lot of times before, what got you here, you could have been on your toes all the time, understanding your surroundings and all that stuff. What I've been learning even recently, and I've been talking to my wife about this, because she was asking me, oh, did you hear about this in the news? Did you hear about that in the news? And my response to her is like, I don't absorb any information unless it's this. It's about finance, this. And then I don't know anything else. And the reason why it's been that way is because of the family, the kids. I don't have time for anything else. So the more that you put all these other ones in there, it just kind of almost confuses.
Clouds.
Yeah, clouds, and it confuses. So I'm like, hey, unless it's this information, this type of information, good, positive, I can take that. Other than that, I kind of block that out. And that's why I've been so intrigued of, listening to your stories and how you've been able to navigate with setting very healthy boundaries along the way and understanding that. And it's also led you to God. Yeah. And I love the way that you got into it, because it's usually how I get into things. It's always like, I always have some doubt and I go, okay, let me prove it wrong. Yeah. And then the more you turn it, but then a part of that is that, along that journey, you had to let go of your ego too, right? You had to be like, maybe I was a little wrong.
No, you're absolutely.
Maybe I got to give this one up.
Yeah. It's interesting, because when I look at success, a lot of times I look at, well, were they honorable in their success? And I think as a person, I didn't become a big Hollywood star. I've done a lot of things on a lower level. I could have become a big success in that industry, but I chose honor and I chose respect over that, because I would rather be honorable and fail than be successful and be a fraud. And when you look at Hollywood, there's a lot of people that are successful. They shouldn't be, but we know why they were successful.
Weinstein, that whole...
Yeah,
that's just, it's huge.
Give it like...
I've had so many issues with that. I was on a set of a big film. I won't say what it is, but in between the scene that I had a I don't want to say who it is, because everybody's going to know the movie and who it was, and I don't want to put it out there.
What does it rhyme with?
But the director came up to me, and I could tell that the cameraman was gay. He just looked gay and talked that way, and I could just tell the way he was, And I'm not saying anything wrong with gays, and I used to live with a gay man when I was in L.A., so I have no problem with it. I'm just stating a fact that the director came up to me and said, hey, and he stood off away from me. And in Hollywood, they test you, and they want to see what you'll do. And what happened was I was tested, and I was not tested once, but several times. And he walked up to me. He was about 10 feet away and had his back to me. And I was the only one there. Everybody was on a break. And he said, hey, I want you in a gay part in my next movie. You interested? And I looked at around going, are you talking to me? And he goes, nobody else is in the room with us. And I said, not interested at all. And he turns around and looks at me. He goes, why? I said, just not interested, man. He goes, do you know anybody that's interested? I said, no, unfortunately, I don't. And he walked back, and I could see the cameraman talk with him, and he had his back to me. And he just zung around in the chair and looked at me and stared at me with this angry look on his face. So I just sat back and I was like, wow. And then after that, I got other roles in films that I was approached to do things that there's no way I'm doing that, And it made my stomach turn. And then I started experiencing fraud and things like that with the agents in L.A., the casting directors in L.A., and I just had bad experiences, and I just said, this is screwy. Now, to add to that, there are good people in that industry, but unfortunately, a lot of the people with power aren't, and that's where you're going to run into that problem.
I imagine you mix power and money. Yes.
It's
No good usually
No,
comes from it.
And the Bible doesn't say money's the root of all evil. It says the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yeah.
And so when people start worshiping money too much, that's when you start to have another God. And God looks at it as money is basically your God now, right? So to me, I could have been more successful than I am, but I chose to be honorable. And I think everybody should do that, because if you can look at yourself in the mirror and you haven't walked on people and been just a complete and utter, moralless individual, even though you fail, you're still going to make it, because you're obviously a go-getter, right? And I didn't become this super ultra popular Hollywood person, but I live comfortably. I have a great life. I have a stress-free life. I set myself up to be stress-free and love what I do. And I tell everybody, I love fitness. It's my biggest thing. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love acting too. But if you love, everybody always says, what's the key to success? And I don't tell them that in this business you need to do this. I just say, what do you love to do? What do you love to do? And they'll say, wow, I love to do this, but I can't get a job doing it. I said, why not? Why can't you make money doing that? You can. And then if you love what you do, people see that and they want to be part of that. So it's important when I talk about fitness to my clients that I'm enthusiastic, but I am anyways. I don't have to act like it. And you have to care about people. You can't just look at people as a number sign or a dollar sign, because people can sense that too. So you have to genuinely care for people. You have to be someone that's passionate about what you like and what you love, and you will automatically be successul. Now, what level of success you want is going to be dependent on how much of a go-getter you want to be. And you guys obviously seem to be doing that. I look at you, and then Gabe is yourself, and you with your, your business over in the other gym. I mean, you guys are go-getters, man. And that's really important. And I don't understand how someone could be content with just sitting around and living a lifestyle of just, smoking, doing drugs. And when I say smoking, I mean illegal drugs and things like that, and not just have any ambition to do anything.
John, do you ever look at a person that you're training? You've been a trainer. How long have you been a trainer?
Well, on the police department, I was actually a trainer. That's where I started at. And I used to compete in bodybuilding. So I trained guys in the gym my whole life. Even when I wasn't a trainer, just friends, I would give them their routines. So I would say probably, 19 years old I started. So probably like 48 some years, long time. But personally, and as a business, 23 years.
Okay. And when you look at a client or a person, anybody that you interact with, because it's like being an artist, like when you look at other people's artwork, whether it's visual or like it's a song or something, you kind of critique art in the way.
Yeah.
But the body, when you're looking at people and you're interacting with them, and even if someone's unhealthy, whether they work out or not, do you ever look at someone and say, you see their full potential? Do you ever see that?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Absolutely. I tell my wife that. I'm like, man, like I see how my son could look. I see how this person could look.
Yeah.
And even like the pastor, for example, he's extremely out of shape. And I'm like, man, you could be a savage. Like, imagine if you just invested in this portion of your life.
Right.
Do you ever do that?
Yeah, all the time. It's funny you brought that up, because I just did it this morning. I have a client, and she's obviously had a few kids and let herself go, and she's just completely unmotivated, and I just was sitting there with her, and I said, you know what, I don't mean this in a way to, it's not like anything and I'm being a pervert or something, but listen, you have a beautiful face, and you're neglecting the other half of yourself, and that's your body, and you have so much potential that many people would die for, and you're doing nothing with it. You should understand that what you have, you could be phenomenal in so many ways, shape, or form. And then you get the juices going in their mind. And what I wanted to do is get an app where I could literally take like someone's picture and then show them what I could do to their body with their frame, where it would shrink it down, and then you put their have their face on it so they could see their potential.
AI will do that right now for you.
Yeah. Look, we just made you right.
Yeah.
So I think that would be a really good.
Let's get into some of your Hollywood experience.
So take us down the journey. So when did you've been in the fitness space? You went from shaking your butt on stage to arresting people, and then now you start, we alluded to it here and there with your acting career. So how did you become the actor, and then obviously we get your roles with Mortal Kombat, Sub-Zero, and just some of the characters you played?
Well, that was a whole journey, but it started out when I was a policeman. I went and auditioned. I got a part in Mortal Kombat, and then I really wasn't an actor because Mortal Kombat was a physical thing. You're kicking, you're punching. But at one point, the new character I had been introduced, first of all, Mortal Kombat, we had a 1 and 2. I came in at 3. The guy from 1 and 2 had problems with the creators. He was having an issue with how he was being paid. He was saying that he was a creator along with them, and he had this big dispute, got lawyers, and they had a big fight. So they're like, basically, screw you, and they had to recast it. So that's how I came in. And when I did what was called the Unmasked Sub-Zero, the guy that has a red line, it turned out to be a real popular character. And then the other Sub-Zero, I was like the brother of him, right? So they decided they want to do kind of a Sub-Zero game itself, and it would involve Scorpion and Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, and so they wanted to make just a Sub-Zero game. And then that's when I got my actual acting experience, because inside the game you actually had little acting skits, and I would do a little skit with another guy that they cast as Scorpion. Even though I played Scorpion during this game, the acting skits, they got an actor for that, and they got an actor to play Raiden and some of those others. So I got my first taste of acting, and I actually enjoyed it because I got to become this character, something else that I wasn't, right? So you get to go into this fantasy land and be something that you're not. And that's when I kind of fell in love with acting. And then I started just going on more auditions and getting more parts. And then after a while, I have a look to where people see me as one thing. Well, they see me as several things, but my jaw and my build, I'm either going to be a military guy, I'm going to be a cop, Secret Service, a mob hitman, or something like that. I'm never going to be the young dad. I'm never going to be the dad. I'm never going to be the average guy in a bar. It's just, I don't have that look. And so I became typecast, and everything I would get, if you look at my credits, everything in there is what I said. And I ended up playing the last film I did was it came out in 2020. It was called Wolfhound. And it was a World War II film, and I had to learn a little bit of German. First I got the script, and it was this long part, and they wanted me to learn German. I'm like, dude, you want this script? I had like a 13-minute monologue in one scene, and they're like, we want you to say it in German. I go, so it's German? Can you do it by Wednesday? And it's like Saturday night. I go, I gotta learn 13-minute thing, and I can't do it. He goes, can you learn a German accent? So I go, okay, I'll do it in a German accent. So I called up this guy in Hollywood, and he did some work with me over the internet, and then he gave me a bunch of videos. I watched them, and I got a decent German accent down, and I did it, and I ended up getting cast. And so I learned about World War II, and I just really got into World War II because my character was a Nazi lieutenant, and he was just a brutal scumbag. So that's what that film was about, and I had to develop this character, and that was probably the role I enjoyed the most. Not the persona of
He's
the
like,
role.
pause. He's like, pause.
Not the persona of it, but it was becoming this role and the process of it.
Pushing yourself.
Yeah, because I am so different from that. And like when people meet me, they're like, man, dude, I always thought you were going to be a dick. And I'm like, I didn't even say anything. Why would you think it? You just look like one. Just have a dick face. So it's just, I hear it all the time, you're way nicer than I thought you'd be. But anyway, so it's for me to jump into that role and become this mad, crazy character was fun. I mean, it was like being something you're not and trying to take that on and be believable, and then do it with an accent, do it with all these people standing around, do it with all this dialogue, and do it with another actor in front of you at a certain time in a certain place. It's a challenge, and I love a challenge, especially when I like something. It's so much fun. So that's where my real true love of acting happened. And then I ended up getting parts in Chicago PD, a show called Crisis, and I had one scene in there, and then they ended up liking me a lot, and they cast me as a regular in it, and it got one season, and then they paired it with the NBA championship, so I wouldn't get good ratings, which is a bad thing, So that got one season, and it was out, and then
You did Dark Knight also?
Yeah, I did Dark Knight. I had a speaking role in that, but things hit the editing floor. It wasn't anything I did. They shoot a ton of footage, and they just splice what they need and don't need. But one of the things I always wanted to do is I always wanted to be my goal in life for fitness was to be on the cover of Muscle Fitness magazine, which I ended up doing. And then
What year was that?
2001, May of 2001. And what's interesting was I was the only guy to be on the cover who didn't get a credit. And the reason why is Joe Weider didn't like me, my shot, my thing. And then he liked this guy. And it wasn't that he didn't like me. He didn't like the way the art direction was of it. And he picked this other one, which was just a set of abs that were in bronze. And then they had mine. And he says, well, let's put it on the internet and see what the public wants to do. So they put it on the internet for voting, and 97% wanted my cover, and 3% wanted the one Joe Weider had. So they decided we're going to do a split cover. And they've only done 2 split covers in the entire history of Muscle and Fitness, and mine was one of them. So they couldn't put a credit in there because they had 2 different covers. So here I got a cover on Muscle Fitness magazine, and I didn't get a credit for it, but it is what it is. But I ended up doing a bunch of other covers for other stuff. So that was my one goal. My other one was I always wanted to work with Gary Oldman. He's my favorite actor, and he was in The Dark Knight, and I got to talk to him and sit with him, and I had a scene with him, got cut out, but it was just all these things that I wanted in my professional life started to come true. And being a cop, that came true. And I don't know, just the whole thing. It's like, if you, and at the time I wasn't into God, like with the cop thing, but when I decided I really want to be a cop, I think you can kind of manifest things if you want it enough, I think we're all children of God, even though you don't believe. But God gives us all favor. Even though you don't believe in him, he'll bless people. And he blesses people because he loves us all. So you can manifest something if you want it so much and God feels it's right for you. It'll come out. It'll happen. And I feel I've done that with a lot of the things in my life that I've accomplished. But
I hear that a lot, that a lot of people of faith think and say they can manifest the positive, which is...
And you can manifest the negative too.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. I think you're all given a gift to whatever degree that is. Right. And you can only measure your gift. You can see other people's gifts. You can recognize it, but your gifts are for you. So, so the acting, so you did a lot of stunt work. Is that right?
I was big on, so when I got into the acting thing with stunts, I did fight stuff, but I couldn't do much more than that because of my knee. So whenever I did fight stuff, I had to wear a big brace, and I can't do this, And then after a while, the stunt coordinator ended up seeing me for only certain things. So, for example, when I did Prison Break, I had a fight scene with the main star in there, where I befriend him, and then I take him down into this boiler room and basically beat him up with a pipe.
I just watched that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it was a pretty good scene. Yeah.
Good scene.
You beat the crap out of it.
Yeah.
Blood everywhere.
Yeah, and then, but I had to jump off the scaffolding. I said, man, I can't jump from that high. My knee won't take that. So they laid just a giant pad down on the floor, and I fall into this pad and land on him, and it just goes on from there. But, they cut and splice, and stunt work is people don't realize they're pretty much the unsung heroes in a lot of the trick, right? And I watched Tom Cruise, and bless the guy's heart, he likes doing all those stunts, but there comes a point when
he's going to pay the price.
John already did with that ankle, shattered that ankle. If you've ever watched that where he jumps from the one building to the other, I'm surprised he didn't break his whole rib in half. I mean, his foot slammed down, but his whole chest slams against that rooftop, and I'm like, wow. But if that's what he gets off on, and he's good at it, but...
Made out of vibranium, dude.
That dude's ridiculous, man. It's like, you guys are the same age, right? Pretty much.
Yeah. You're definitely not the same height.
No, he's pretty short,
Yeah, he's like 4'6".
No, but what he does is amazing. Like, the older you get, the more you realize, dude, that dude's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
he's pretty remarkable, yeah.
Well, not taking anything away from him, he's got money to be that guy.
Right. Yeah.
He can have anything done, stem cells and all this stuff done to make his body work well. There's a certain point of everything I've done, nothing is artificial.
Painful.
It's all diet, nutrition, and exercise. And the key to all of it, again, is going back to what I said earlier, is evolving in your workouts. You can't keep doing the same thing. Like today, for example, I was benching, and I don't really go super heavy, but in the past, if I felt a twinge in my pec, I would just keep going. and I would mess it up. And today I felt a twinge and workout's over. I put it down,
Yep.
I don't want to be nursing injuries all the time. So I'll give you a little rundown. I've had 9 surgeries on my right knee. I had, just from that cop job, I had 4 right away. And then I've had 2 since I left the police department because it's so messed up. And then my left knee is taken over for my right knee because I've always had So this is worn down, and then I ended up having, so this knee operated. I had 2 foot surgeries in my left foot from kicking and just hitting crap. The bones are all like messed up in my foot, so I had to have a tendon reattached in that one. I had my toe redone because I broke that kicking a guy in the elbow. I never had that fixed. And then my elbow, I was in a commercial for Nintendo, and I had to get hit by like 6 guys at 6 different times, and I'm doing it over and over again. The last guy hit is a guy by the name of Tom Milanovic. He's like 6'6", 280 pounds. He recently passed away, but I hit him, and a guy hit me too early, and he avulsed the tendon off my tricep.
Oh.
And so I had to have that reconstructed.
Send Nintendo the bill.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And so I had my shoulder reconstructed just from wear and tear over the years. I popped my bicep. I've had 3 hernia operations, 40 stitches in my chin, 7 in my eye. And when I was a cop, I was in a training class holding a bag for a guy. He missed the bag. He was supposed to be hitting it with a PR-24, really uncoordinated. Misses the bag, hits me straight square in the mouth, swinging the club. Bam! I go, and as I'm going back, I'm feeling the pain. I go, wow, my teeth are going to be gone. And I just spin my head forward, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry, man. I said, hang on a second. I run in the bathroom, and all this blood is pouring out. And I'm like, okay, what do my teeth look like? And I go, my teeth are all in. What happened? Where's all this blood coming from? I'm looking, my lip isn't cut. And I go back in, I go, I can't see a cut, but I'm bleeding. Let's just keep going. So I hold the bag, and my mouth is filling with blood, and I don't know what's wrong. And all of a sudden I go, and everybody goes, holy cow, something's wrong. And I run in the bathroom, and I take my lip, and I pull it down, and it separated my whole entire gum line from my teeth, had pulled off. And you could see the roots of my teeth, the nerves and everything. Yeah, and so I run to the emergency room. It's just pouring blood out. And I go to the emergency room, and the doctor comes in. He goes, so what's wrong? And I got these rags full of blood. He goes, man. He goes, I don't see anything. He goes, what? I go, here. And I pull my mouth open. He goes, oh. He goes, hang on a second. You mind if I call some people in? And I go, no, go ahead. And he calls in, like, all these fellows come in. They're going, I've never seen this before. It's really interesting. So you might show them again. And I'm like, okay. And I pull it down. I'm like, oh, my gosh. And he goes, we can't help you here. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, you need an oral surgeon. So he goes, there's a guy I can send you to. He's right down the street. I'll call him. He'll be ready for you. You need that fixed right away. So I went in and they stitched it up, man. So I had that. I've had 5 concussions from football and martial arts. Yeah, I mean, just my body has been through the mill. I don't want any more injuries.
Yeah.
I don't want any more surgeries. I just want to ride off into the sunset. Yeah, it's been miserable.
So when you've been a trainer for 23 years.
Yeah.
And obviously independent, were you ever commercial? Did you ever work as an
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I worked for Chicago Health Club when I was first getting started, and then I worked for a place in the city called East Bank Club in Chicago. And I've been in a ton of gyms. There's no gym like this place. If you ever get to Chicago, you gotta go to East Bank Club. It's the most remarkable, phenomenal gym you'll ever see.
Also,
yeah, it's just they got more cardio equipment than the biggest gym in San Diego has for their entire floor. So in other words, all their weights, space, everything, that's just their cardio room.
Got it.
They got so much crap. I mean, Oprah works out there. All these people in there in town are there. All this, anyone that's a celebrity is there. And then they have a functional room that's just incredible. They have a free weight room that's incredible. They got machines that you never even seen before. And it's just a phenomenal gym. So I worked there for like 3 months, and then I go, I just can't take it working for somebody, and I just went off on my own.
How was that paid? Was it like
not very good? So that was like 2001, and I was probably making like maybe $25 an hour.
Right.
And they were asking because the people that go to that facility are very affluent.
Right.
And so I think I asked my one client, you mind if I ask what you pay? He goes, yeah. I pay. At that time it was like $100 a session. So you're talking back 20 something years ago. And I'm getting 25 of that. They're taking, 75 of that. Yeah. So
your time, your talent, your labor, you're just being used as a tool.
Right. Yeah. But
so since then, you were there as an employee. Did you ever work anywhere that did like profit share or anything like that, or you just went fully independent?
Yeah, I just went fully independent. You know, I didn't really ever see anyone in Chicago, in the Chicago area, that had like any kind of profit sharing where I can get involved and buy stock in the company. I worked for Chicago Health Club, which eventually went out of business, and I think they offered it, but at that point I was fresh out of college. I wasn't even a trainer that I was doing membership sales, and I hated it. I'm not a salesman. Yeah, this is what it is. You want it or not? You know, I'm not that kind of guy. I just not a salesman. I'm passionate about what I do, but I don't like, you know, I don't know. I'm just not. I tried to do sales, and I'm just not good at it.
The summer's phone. Oh, that's you.
Yeah.
The missus.
Spam. No.
Well, the reason why I ask is because a lot of people going independent, it's like, how do I get clients? And there's probably personal trainers. When you started naming all the equipment, personal trainers, you might listen to like, hell yeah. It's like health clubs and that kind of stuff. That's the talk of the talk when it comes to personal trainers. Like, you're redoing your facility right now with new equipment and stuff, and you're adding a lot of new features.
Yeah.
And stuff, which is it's highly attractive to trainers.
Mm-hmm.
You see that, you're like, yeah.
Look at Kid and the Kid. He's all right.
Yeah. And
We were just talking about this yesterday, and because there's multiple ways, and I've always expressed this to other trainers, and I go, my avatar or who I'm looking for is different from who you're looking for.
Right.
So when I say that, every decision I made for the facility itself was a different avatar than them.
Yeah.
Right. And so what I mean by that is, like, I'm focused on trying to get equipment, any kind of thing that can help, or whatever I build makes them more money. Like, they can capitalize on that. And then so I was like, I wouldn't buy anything that is or, you know, install anything that's going to be more for like a big box or a membership gym. And so I was trying to explain to that, because sometimes I get asked that question, why don't you buy this? Or why don't you get this? Or why don't you add this? And I'm like, that doesn't help your bottom line.
Yeah.
You're my client, not the other way around.
Right. So when you say that, do you mean like equipment that you lift with, or do you mean equipment like a bod pod, or like, you know, a body fat machine, or a cold plunge? Like, some gyms are adding those as equipment that'll help facilitate what you do. You know, like, hey, you know, then you would get, as a trainer, a percentage of what you sell your client on, right?
So yeah, I'd be open to any of them, right? And so when we're looking at those things, we've tried it before, but like those types of machines, and then so when we're showing them, and I'm like, would you want to make money off this?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of trainers don't, right?
Yeah.
And they don't focus on that.
Yeah, right.
And so that's when it helps the big box facilities, because it's more of an attraction.
an amenity.
Yeah, it's an amenity,
Gotcha.
right? But then to like the trainers and even myself, I'm like, okay, so where would you rather put that money, right? We could spend it multiple different ways.
Because you got to maximize revenue per square foot as a gym owner.
So we're always looking at that. We're always looking at dissecting that, you know.
So have you guys found, when it comes to like fitness facilities, have you found like a lot of people that, for example, Starbucks does a ton of research, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where they're going to put a Starbucks, and certain businesses piggyback off that. Is there any business that the fitness industry you think piggybacks off of? In other words, at this company, they do a ton of research. People that buy here are going to be fitness enthusiasts, and that's where they're going to go.
Absolutely. I mean, median household income, you know, if you're a personal training facility, you're going to want to find somewhere that could afford a personal trainer. Because if not, you're talking to the wrong people about the right stuff.
I think that's happening a lot online right now.
Yeah.
Like, definitely. We talk about this all the time as far as the online business. Right now, online's about $18 billion a year. By 20
online fitness.
Online fitness, yeah. And doing your homework on that. They say by 2032, it should be right around 215 billion online.
Wow.
So I think the guys that are doing that now, looking at trends and where to piggyback on, I think it's very prevalent online.
Yeah.
At least as we build out Winning Daily, I'm looking at what the inner circle looks like as far as like, who can we partner with? Like, we picked up White Rabbit, right? And
White Rabbit.
Just by coincidence, they're in this industry. You know, those are the things that we're looking at, and we're strictly online.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So
Yeah, I think look at places like Lifetime and, you know, some of these bigger ones, Equinox, Lifetime, big clubs. Those are always going to be popular, but they're a health club. So the personal trainer, that's why I brought up the profit sharing thing, because it sounded something like a Lifetime. And I know that they do that at some of their facilities or gyms or clubs, you want to say, however you want to call them. They're more of a health club, and they sell, the amenities, and it's like, oh, I can go there. It's like, right, you have a bar here. It's like, you have a bar here? Whatever, the steam showers or whatever it is, right? But they do profit sharing with some of their trainers. And so they allow the trainer to sell basically at whatever rate they like, and it's like a 60-40 split, which is still, you're taking the short end of the straw, and if you ever want to leave, it's like that was never your client,
right?
You're just, they give you a bit more skin in the game, I guess, but it's still not your client. And so I guess my question for you is 20, 30 years of training and going independent, at whatever point you went independent, how did you start to acquire clients? What's been the client that you have, and like, this person did with me forever, or what were some of the obstacles that you overcame as a fitness professional, as a trainer?
So when I first got down in Chicago and started training, I had no idea business-wise. I had no business acumen. I had, just a lot of knowledge. And what I did is I did a couple seminars. Like I said, hey, I put a thing up around the neighborhood, and I said, going to do a fitness seminar and I talked to the local gym and said, hey, can I come here and do this? And they're like, yeah, go ahead, So I did something like that, and then I did a wellness fair, and then I would pass out my cards, and then I would get a client. One client out of doing like 4 or 5 of them, some of them were all day affairs, and I didn't advertise. I did actually. I advertised, and I'm not going to say who it was, but I got taken, and I said, I'm not going to do any of this advertising. I don't trust anybody, I'll tell you guys when we're off air who it was. But so that happened. And so I got really turned off by the whole advertising thing. So I ended up just doing what I was saying, going up and doing these seminars. And then I would get a client. And then I decided, okay, I'm gonna need a website, and that was like 2001. So this guy built me a website. It was very, rudimentary, small, and really wasn't much to it. And then as I got busier and busier through referrals from other people, because so I had a lot of success with certain people, and then when people see the success, it attracts them. Like, okay, what is this guy doing different? I've had 6 trainers before, and this person says they had a bunch of trainers and they finally found success with you. What is it that you were doing? And I've always found the main thing is if people aren't accountable and you don't give them number 1 goals, and the other thing is I think diet's super important, and a lot of people fail because they're not accountable, and we can't be there all the time. But that's why I love some of these food apps like MyFitnessPal. I use all the time, and I tell people you will not be successful until you go on there and you log your calories. You have to, because you're never gonna. The old adage where people say, "Oh, you don't have to count calories." Yes, if you weigh 400 pounds and you want to lose weight, you just drop your calories down, you lose weight. Or if you're 28% body fat and you want to get down to 17, just cut out certain food. You don't have to go. But when you want to get in really good shape, what a lot of people want to do, you have to count calories. And MyFitnessPal, I love it because it's just got everything in it, and it makes people accountable. And so many people have said to me, you know what? I never realized how much I ate until I started looking at my calories every day. And they're like, I was eating this many calories, and now, according to what you're telling me, I need to eat this, and I'm seeing results, and they love it. Like a lot of women that were getting ready for weddings, I helped out with. And the sad thing is they get in this phenomenal shape, and then I'll see them 3 months later. They're like, had a honeymoon and it didn't go well.
Let it go, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, they let it go right out the window. And be like you were bringing up earlier, the spirit's one thing, but the mind is another, and then the body is a whole other thing. Your body and your mind are not going to be, either one's going to be healthy unless the other one can support it. And that's why it's so important to take care of your physical body, because your brain, that computer we're walking around with is running off what you put in the rest of you.
I wanted to kind of veer off to the left a little bit. With one of my clients that I currently have and I've been working with for a couple of years, I've dealt with thousands of personal trainers. Mm-hmm. You stick out more than any other trainer for that company. Oh, wow. And the one reason is this, is I've done training for this company for 2.5, 3 years. You're the only trainer that gets it digitally that I've actually seen. He has 3 websites. He has his 3 websites that produce organic traffic and convert into business for him. And that's how I met him, is he hired me to do some SEO work.
Yeah, right.
So if you want, tell everybody what those sites are, and we'll plug them obviously at the bottom.
So the first one is personaltrainersandiego.com, and that's my main one that I use for the San Diego area. And then I have one called The Fearless Fitness, where I sell online workouts on. And then the other one is john-turk.com, and that's my kind of acting one, but it also kind of goes hand in hand with my training.
Part of his personal brand.
Yeah, personal brand. So those all come together, and like I use them all pretty regularly. I have people that want, workouts, and a lot of times I kind of got the idea from probably about 10 years ago. There was this guy on the internet that was really popular selling workouts, and he did really, really well. And then when COVID hit, I basically was like, okay, what am I going to do now for the next few months? And I just sat there 12 hours a day. And I don't sit down and do my computer. I actually lay on my back because it's better for my back. As you get older, just from all the lifting, your back gets a little jacked, especially you sit for a long time.
Connective tissue.
Yeah, right. So I just sat on my back for 12 hours a day, writing workout after workout. And then I went, the gym owner at the time I said, hey man, it's just going to be me and a film crew. Can I go in this gym and just open it up? You got to close. I'll pay you. And I want to film a bunch of videos. So I filmed like 600 little videos, and they're all 1 minute long, because if you want to build a workout for somebody.
Legit.
Yeah. And if you want to build a workout for somebody, you don't want to have them watch a 5 or 10 minute form video. Everybody pretty much knows what this movement is. And I tell them, listen, it's just the basics of the movement to where you won't get hurt. It takes a lot more, but it's a long video to do that. I made a bunch of small little 1 minuters. And so I would put links in all these things. So that's how I designed my workout programs to be.
He made shorts before shorts were a thing, right?
Yeah, right.
You're not monetizing those, and that's what we're doing right now. I'm going to talk to you about monetizing those, because you can. Right now is a good time to start making money on those.
Yeah, okay.
And I'll show you how to do that.
Okay, awesome. So that's what I did with the Fearless Fitness website, and then the acting one's been great because it's got some of the stuff I did on there, but people can get at a glance, can see my resume, can see, the acting job they did. There's little clips on there of some of them. I think I put like 6 or 7 of them on there, because casting directors usually want to just see right away, okay, what did he do? They don't want to watch a 12-minute scene like my Wolfhound scene is 12 minutes long, and they don't want to watch that. They're going to see a real quick thing. So that's what I put little quick hits on there. And then I sold my autographed pictures on there, and I got some posters. I do appearances here and there. I did Comic-Con a few times. But quite honestly, guys, I'm afraid to go like big gatherings now. I just don't trust it now. I went to Comic-Con, and I walked in, and I had a big bag with me, and nobody checked me. There was nothing there. I walked through, and I'm walking through, and I'm walking.
Edit that out right now. Especially right now.
Yeah. So I'll just tell you, they asked me to do it a few times more. I said, I don't want to. I didn't say why, but I was walking through people like this. I'm thinking, oh, somebody drops a bomb in here, a dirty bomb in one of their costume suitcases. I'm done. And so I just didn't do them anymore. And again, that's the cop mentality coming through on me, right? And
I'm going to live a long time, man. This is not how I'm going to go out at Comic-Con like this. Yeah. Hey,
go ahead.
Well, I have some, of course, speaking of going out, we're short on time. Yeah. I have a few, we do the hot seat questions with our guests.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to call out a word, and I want you to just give me your quick hot seat definition of it. And this is all fair game. So discipline, what do you got?
Discipline means always showing up and always giving 100%.
Success?
Success is how you define it.
Trainer?
Which kind of trainer?
Personal trainer.
Personal trainer.
How do you define it?
I define it, do you hurt people? Because I think it's in the training industry, if you're a trainer and you don't hurt anybody, you're at a good trainer level. Because I've seen people do things out there, and I'm like, I can't believe it. I want to walk over there and say, don't do that. But I can't. And I just think that if you're a trainer and you're not hurting anybody, you're a good trainer. There's different levels, obviously, and where you can take your client from there, but that's how I would define a trainer.
Motivation.
Find what you love.
Winning daily.
Winning daily is showing up and just putting 100% of everything you do, and do it with joy. be joyful.
Okay. Last couple questions here. What's your no one would believe this about me fun fact?
That's a good question.
Man, it's gonna take him. I already told you I was a stripper. So
Well, okay. Did you ever dress up as a cop as a stripper?
yeah, I did.
Look, there it is.
Yeah, private.
Wait, did you strip for anybody famous?
Oh, yeah.
Let's see. No, so I did,
Yeah.
and I didn't know they were famous at the time because when I was in line at a grocery store, they were on the cover of the National Enquirer. Oh shit! Yeah. So it was pretty funny, but no, there are things that they don't know about me. Man, you know, I'm afraid of heights. I'm definitely afraid of heights, and I can't walk out on a balcony if it's like 3 stories or more. I'm like, ugh. You know what's weird about it? It's not that I'm afraid of it. I want to jump. And that somebody told me that's what acrophobia is you're afraid because you want something's drawing me over the edge, and I look at that and I just go, oh my gosh, I
Do you have vertigo too, or
no, never. Yeah, what's weird is as you get older, you tend to get it, but luckily I haven't got that. And I think this is what I think. I try to do things that stimulate the vertebral system. And so, for example, as you age, no one has impact with the ground. And so what I do every morning, I've been doing it for a long time, is I get up on my toes and I slam my heels into the floor. And none of us run much anymore. I can't. My knees are bad. So I practice doing things, number one, that challenge my vestibulum. And so I slam my knees because everything in your head gets jarred, right? But I don't do it really hard, but it simulates like a hard run, landing hard on the ground. And we don't do that anymore as you age. Everybody sits or everybody gets, hey, I don't want to do that, or, I can't do that. And the saddest thing for me is I belong to a Bible study, and it's everyone is old. And recently, this past few months, 4 people have died. They're in their 80s. And I went the other night, and everyone's, we're feeling sorry for this person, and it's horrible. But everyone is just talking about what they can and can't do. And I'm like, why can't you do that? Wow, I got arthritis, I got this and that. I'm like, no, I think arthritis is a food condition. I don't think arthritis is something that we're all going to get. I think it's inflammation caused by our diets. And as you get older, your stomach, I'm going on a rant here. I know it's cut short, but I'll just say it real quick. I think food is the cause of arthritis. People are allergic to things they don't even realize they're allergic to. It causes a manifestation through their gut, and it goes throughout their whole body, and it attacks your joint that's the most worn down, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And once you could figure out what those foods are, and they're foods you ate your whole life. For me, it was nightshade vegetables.
Really?
Yeah, I can't eat them. And also coffee. Like I had coffee last night.
No, don't say that.
And I haven't had it in a long time. I woke up this morning, my leg is killing me, my knee. Killing me. Oh. Yeah. So it's all weird.
Finding those indicators is
you have to.
John, it's been a privilege. I love having you on, man. Yeah. We'll have you on again, I'm sure. We'll have you else again here soon. Anything you want to say to the people at home, man?
Just whatever you love, pursue it. Love your family and your friends as much as you can. Cherish every minute, and just don't get upset and relax. Be cool.
Chill out, man. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winning Daily YouTube channel. If you haven't already, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and go right here and turn that notification bell on. We look forward to winning daily with you.